All right. So what the legislature does is actually make law. They do other things besides that, but their primary purpose is to make law. How is it that they do that? There is a process. It is a laborious process. Um, there are things up here, obviously, that we can't put on there. This chart comes from your book. One of the issues that is not on there is how something even gets on the congressional agenda. So you see here that the bill is introduced and assigned to a committee, which refers the bill, refers it to the appropriate committee, etc. But how does it even get to this point, to where it's assigned? So the way things get on the congressional agenda are there's really four ways that they get on the congressional agenda. One, there's a highly visible event, such as 9/11. Right now, we are in the midst of a highly visible event, the coronavirus. And so you see this piece of legislation that came out where Congress is spending $2.2 trillion, and it happened relatively quickly. Whereas you will see a typical bill, it is a laborious process to get it through the congressional maze and then to the president's desk to be signed. Another way something can get on the congressional agenda is that there is president support, which moves something onto the agenda. Technological change can place things on the congressional agenda, such as genetically altered foods, for instance, and a reaction to them, and there's got to be some safety, things like that. Another way is citizens working through their representatives. So when you're on the freeway and you see these signs, these electronic signs that say, look for a white Ford Bronco, child abducted, that becomes because of Megan's law. And that was a citizen working through their representative as a way to change things. So what happened, there was this little girl named Megan. She was kidnapped, and her parents reasoned if there would have just been signs on the freeway saying that this had happened, maybe somebody could have spotted the car, called the police, and she could have been, the individual who kidnapped her could have been apprehended before they killed her. So this is a prime example of citizens working through the representative. However it gets on the congressional agenda, it's got to be introduced into the House and or into the Senate by a member of the House or a member of the Senate. So if you're a citizen, or if you're even the President of the United States, you cannot introduce a bill into the House or to the Senate. That's got to be done through a member. Now, it's easy enough to do that. All you've got to do is contact the member of the House from your district, and if they think it's a good idea, they're going to be happy to introduce that into the House for you. Whether or not it goes anywhere, that's a different issue. So it gets now, what happens is when a bill gets introduced to the House, it better get introduced to the Senate at the same time, because as we said, it is a laborious process that it takes some time to go through for a typical bill. So it's introduced, we'll go through the House, and then we'll come back to the Senate, knowing that basically it needs to be introduced at the same time. So it gets introduced into the House. In the House, it's placed into a hopper. The House clerk then takes it out, assigns it a number. So House bills will always start out with two letters, HR, for House of Representatives. And Senate bills will start out with one letter, S, for Senate, obviously. And then there'll be some number placed behind those letters. Once that happens, then it gets assigned to a committee. The committee then assigns it to a subcommittee. So the way Congress works is through committee, and that will, let me just go there right now. This is what Professor Woodrow Wilson said when he was professor at Yale, political science professor. He said, Congress in session is Congress on display. Congress in committee is Congress at work. What he's saying is the real work in Congress is done in committees. It's the only way for it to happen. There's so much going on, and the only way for it to move forward is for individuals to organize around committees, smaller committees. Those smaller committees then study the issues and move things through. So the bill gets assigned to a committee, then it gets assigned to a subcommittee. If things are progressing, the subcommittee will study the bill, and then they'll hold hearings. And at these hearings, they'll invite experts to come and testify. They'll invite the citizens, if it was a citizen who proposed the bill for their representative, perhaps even to come and testify. What is it they want from the bill? What do they think the words of this bill are actually saying and trying to do? Then this committee or subcommittee will debate this bill. They'll say, we like this, we don't like this, and then they'll do a markup session. A markup session is where they amend it. Now, obviously, it's not official, but it starts out as a given document. So in this markup session, based on the testimony they've heard and the debates they've had with each other, they'll revise the bill. They'll do this markup session. After they do the markup session, they'll invite the experts back. They'll invite those other people that they had testified back. They'll hold the hearings. They'll see what they have to say with the new language of the bill. And then after they're gone, they will study the bill again. And if they like it, they will take a vote on it. Or even if they don't like it, they may take a vote on it. If the vote gets a yay or a yes, then it will be referred back to the committee that assigned it originally to the subcommittee. So now if it's making progress, it'll go back to that committee. And that committee will go through the same exact process the subcommittee did. They'll hold hearings. They'll have debates amongst themselves. Now, a subcommittee is usually about a committee is usually about 4 times as big as a subcommittee. So there's a lot more people here. It's going to be slower. The subcommittees and the committees have the same composition of the House that they're coming from. So, for instance, let's say that 55% of the House of Representatives is Democrat. About 55% of the members of this subcommittee are going to be Democrats, and same with the committee. So they'll go through these hearings, they'll debate it, what does it mean, what do we think it means, what are we trying to do. They'll invite the experts back. They'll have the experts testify again based on the revisions. Then they'll take a vote. If it gets a yay vote, it moves to the Rules Committee, and we'll come back to that in a second. If it gets a nay vote, it kills the bill. It kills the bill, it's just done. The Rules Committee, if it's progressing, the Rules Committee in the House of Representatives, you notice here that there is no Rules Committee here. The Rules Committee then will vote on the type of rules that the bill will be debated under the full House. For instance, a closed rule means that there can be no amendments offered on the House floor. A restrictive rule means that there can only be those amendments that are germane or on topic to the bill. And an open rule means that any amendment can be offered on the House floor. So, for instance, one of the things that the Democrats tried to do with this $2.2 trillion rescue bill is they tried to put what's called a Christmas tree, turn it into a Christmas tree bill, where they just added anything onto the bill that they wanted. One of the things they added was a provision for a $15 an hour minimum wage. This had nothing to do with the intent of the purpose of providing funds to people who are hurt by this coronavirus. They also tried to limit the restrictions that could be placed on abortion. Nothing to do. So, in other words, that was debated under an open rule where anybody could offer any amendments. So it matters what the Rules Committee says. Once it goes through the Rules Committee, then it goes to the full House floor. Now, on the full House floor, there's a limited amount of time that the House will debate a bill. And that's usually 2 hours. So you got 435 members. There's no way all of them, or even a decent amount of them, are going to be able to debate. And so what will happen is they'll tell certain individuals, you get 5 minutes. If those individuals want to yield time to one of their colleagues as a goodwill gesture, they can do that. So there's about 24 people that will have 5 minutes each. Usually these people will be coming from the committee and the subcommittee. And then after that, a vote is taken. And if the vote is yes, then the bill moves to this conference committee. Now let's stop there for a second and go to the Senate. So the same thing, as we said earlier, when the bill is introduced into the Senate, it's going to get assigned to a committee, then it's going to go to a subcommittee, and then you have this whole process going on that went on in the House, where you have hearings, you have the markup sessions, the revisions, they'll hold hearings again based on those markups, then it'll go to the committee, same process. If there is a favorable report, if they vote yes, then it moves to the full Senate. Notice there is no Rules Committee in the Senate. That is because of a tradition in the Senate of an unlimited time to debate. The Senate was smaller when the country started out, only 26 individuals, and so this tradition emerged in the Senate where they had unlimited debate. So this can go on for a long time in the Senate. When that happens, if there are a number of senators that really don't like a bill, they can do what's called a filibuster and try and kill the bill through the filibuster. The most famous filibuster in history was during 1964, when they were trying to pass, Congress was trying to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And a guy by the name of Strom Thurmond from South Carolina, his replacement didn't show up. So as long as individuals are discussing it in the Senate, and by discussing it, it could be that a senator, this is generally what happens, the senator is standing before the full Senate, though chances are only a few of them are actually there during a filibuster, just to make sure when that individual stops they can call for a vote. So Strom Thurmond's replacement didn't show up, and so he had to keep talking. He spoke for 24 hours and 15 minutes. Longest filibuster in history by far. It doesn't even really have to be germane what you say. For instance, at one point during this filibuster, Strom Thurmond said, "The good people of South Carolina are against this bill." He got a phone book and he began to read their names. So there's filibuster. Now, if it passes in the full Senate, then it's going to go to this conference committee. This process of going through the bill in the House and this process of going through the bill in the Senate, there's no way it's going to come out word for word the same. So what a conference committee is, it's an attempt by the House of Representatives, so you have members from the House on it, you have members from the Senate on it. It's an attempt by them to find compromise between the two bodies and present a bill then, after they work out the differences, present a bill to the House and present a bill to the Senate that is word for word the same. If they can do that, then it goes back to the full House for a vote, and it goes back to the full Senate for a vote. If they both approve, then it goes to the President's desk for a signature to pass it into law, or if he vetoes it, all that process was for nothing and it doesn't become a law. We'll stop right there and we'll pick up on the next video.